we've talked a lot about this in between media this season. There's going to be curveballs coming your way.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Kirk Cousins more than probably any other quarterback in the league.
I get a little bit of that rookie-itis, you know?
I would have said, I would love some of what you're smoking.
Even though I'm straight, I'm still stuck between an interpretation, what it all means. Can I make a difference for something different? My mind in prison, then I saw the vision. Played the field, it's no competition. Found success through the repetition. If it's impossible, stick to the mission. I'm just cruising through on my way to get it. I found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. Found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.
All right. Welcome in. It's Tuesday, December 7th. We're continuing to plug away between the holidays here at In Between Media. My name's Seth Woolcock. I'm your regular host of the broadcast. Joined with me is Scott Rainier, holding it down out there in Seattle, one of my normal co-hosts. Jen and Nate Polvote, our fearless couple on the show. They are off vacationing in Cancun this weekend. So we are proud to welcome special guest Dan Mother Effin Turner coming to us from Champions Round. Dan, you've been on the podcast a couple times, man. You're kind of becoming a regular here. Why don't you reintroduce yourself to the In-Between family out there and tell us a little bit about yourself and Champions Round?
Absolutely. So my name's Dan, Eagle Dan FF on Twitter. I work for Champions Round. It's a micro fantasy sports. Basically what it is instead of doing season longs or DFS, we take like week 7 to 12, for example. You choose your team, and whoever has the most points at the end of the 5 weeks, wins. We also have a 7 stakes contest, which is basically like trivia. It's a combination of like over-under, like prop bets and fantasy. Right now I'm writing 3 articles a week, a waiver article, a buy-sell, which it doesn't really matter anymore because the trade deadline's done, and then a weekly preview. And I also have a show with Steffi Smalls every day is draft day, which we just filmed today, actually. So, yeah, busy. I'm busy over there. That's all fun.
Absolutely. Dan, you're a busy man, but I appreciate you making time for us tonight. I actually had the pleasure of hosting you and your wife a couple weeks ago here in State College for a little Penn State Rutgers game. That was a blast, man.
That was awesome. I actually had something I was going to give you and Kate in my car, and I forgot to give it to you, and I found it this other day. I was like, God damn it. I have to like mail it to them now. It was right there.
Well, man, I appreciate you being here with us tonight. Scott, how are you doing out there, man? Things got a little weird last night, guys. Let's be honest here. We saw 3 pass attempts from the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football, and I have a feeling things are going to get a little weirder here. We'll talk about it later in the show, but divisional games are coming up here. So things are about to get weird. Scott, how are you holding up, man? Week 14, playoffs are almost here.
I'm good, man. We've got our gray cloud that has descended in Seattle at this point, so it's a little bit of a bummer weather-wise until we get maybe some snow. But football-wise, yeah, that was a bizarre game yesterday. A lot of heartbreak I saw online for people that really didn't need many points from certain players and didn't get it. And I'm just kind of relieved we're getting to the playoffs now, to where some of my lineups will not be quite as important, and the stress of what I need this and this and this and this to happen to make the playoffs will kind of dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
We can just focus on bringing home a trophy, Champions Trophy.
Or just don't make the playoffs at all, then you don't have to worry about anything for the rest of the year.
That's true. The Seahawks are going that route this year.
Yeah.
No stress.
Well, and the fun thing about this time of year is now, like more than ever, we really have to put the name aside when it comes to fantasy football and NFL players, because, we're talking about household names like Sony Michel, Devonta Freeman, being fantasy relevant players again. And so it's a lot of fun. we're going to break it all down tonight in the episode. We're going to throw a little feel-good lifestyle advice as always here on the show as well. We have our one of our newer segments, Front and Center, back in the day. We're bringing that back tonight. A little Would You Rather and some Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week. If you guys want to interact with us, head over to our YouTube channel, In Between Media. You guys can then drop a comment, drop any questions you might have for us as well. Now's the time. We have Dan here, not Nate. So now is the time, guys. You guys know where to find us by now. You can see our Twitter handles below. The show, everything we're doing over In Between Media, content coming to you guys 7 days a week. That's at IBT_media on the Twitter bird, inbetweenmedia.com. We just released a couple weeks ago our Between the Holidays series. Our first tips column came out this year. Dan, Scott, you guys were a part of that. That was a lot of fun. We're gonna have a little bit more fun here on Friday, December 17th for a 5-hour live stream. Real in the holidays. Scott, I know you're pumped up for that, man.
That's where it all started.
It did. Yeah, that was Scott's first live stream appearance. I can't promise a tight end club being founded from this show, but I can promise a lot of fun in it, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into Front and Center. It's once again presented by our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, it's a Monkey Knife Fight, a sponsor of In Between Media. We're super appreciative of that. It's a go-to for daily fantasy sports.
Yes, sir.
You can see you get a free $5 game, and if you use the promo code IBT, you get up to 100% match for your first $100. So you could basically deposit $100 and get another $100 on top of that. All sorts of different daily fantasy sports. A lot of the stuff we cover here at In Between Media. You've got NASCAR, you've got golf, UFC, fighting, and obviously football. So if you haven't somehow checked out Monkey Knife Fight yet, go over and check it out. Again, use our promo code and get some free money, and then go make some money.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place you can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and Center.
All right, you guys know it's Front and Center here. We're going to just get into the fantasy meat of the discussion here. Guys, in week 13, I think the headline really is RBs came and they played hero ball for our teams. This is a very, very just important time in fantasy football seasons, and running backs showed up across the board here in week 13, starting with our guy Javonte Williams. There's a lot of hype for this rookie coming into week 13. No Melvin Gordon, of course, out with injury. And, I mean, guys, did he live up to expectations? 29.8 PPR points, RB1 on the week, 23 for 102 on the ground, 9 targets, 6 receptions, adds another 76 yards and 1 TD through the air. Dan, were you as impressed as I was?
I was very impressed. I poked a little fun at everyone because everyone was really hyped about, Javonte, and it reminded me of what everyone was talking about with Kyle Pitts when he started the year, where he was so hyped up and everyone was expecting like brilliance immediately, but Javonte actually delivered. I didn't, I expected him to do pretty well. I didn't expect, overall like running back one, but he did it. He ended up, proving everyone that had him right. So it's a really good thing for his future, depending on what happens with Melvin Gordon, and the Denver offense going forward. But I was really impressed with how he played, and he's definitely in the conversation now, especially with like all the more like well-named like Kamara and the McCaffreys. They're getting hurt and they're getting older. You can see, Javonte slide into the top half of the first round next year. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
So overall, Scott, do you think there's any implications for the rest of this season? Like, does this move Javonte Williams up in weekly rankings, do you think? Is he a must start for the rest of the season?
I'm a little torn on this. I mean, I want to say, yeah. One thing about Javonte Williams this week was it was actually one of those rare circumstances where I mean, there was an insane amount of hype, and then he met it, and it happened. It's not much to say. But the thing is Gordon's likely back this week, I think.
Right.
And I don't see them all of a sudden just shifting to one primary back. It might even the table a little bit between those two in the timeshare, but I mean, it was already fairly close to 50-50. I mean, we could all see this potential in, his half of the touches so far this season. We saw flashes on some catches. We saw he's a guy you can't bring down. But I mean, as much as fantasy people, we want Javonte Williams handed the keys to the city. I mean, Melvin Gordon has not been bad this year. He has been also been very good. And he just got hurt. So the idea that Denver's all of a sudden going to be like, well, our lead back got hurt, so now let's shift to a primary back. I just don't see it happening. So I don't. Is he a must start? I mean, I can't imagine not starting him the way they run the ball.
Lions,
with Gordon back.
Lions, Bengals, Raiders coming up for them, the Denver Broncos as well.
Yeah.
So I think you are playing him here at least in week 14, and then you can make your decision based on what I think he does in week 14. Because I am expecting Melvin Gordon to probably suit up here on Sunday. Guys, in addition to Javonte Williams, we also saw the return of Antonio Gibson. It's been great to see what Gibson has done this season towards the end of it. 3 of his last 4 games, he's now into 20 PPR point territory. And without J.D. McKissic, guys, he goes for 22.1 PPR points, 5 for 23 through the air. Who knew this guy could catch, right? No, but it's awesome to see. I think this is one of those things that's sticky, guys. I mean, we saw a running back like David Montgomery get heated up towards the end of last year, and he just kept rolling, and he won a lot of people chips. Like, I think now Gibson is back into the low-end RB1 category. Does anyone disagree with that?
I don't. I mean, the thing with Gibson earlier in the year, it's obviously been his lack of receiving work capping his ceiling, but then he also had the stress fracture in his leg that he was playing through. And the thinking was, the bye would help, but wouldn't likely be enough time for him to completely heal. But I mean, this hotness by both him and the Washington football team in general has all been since the bye. So of course, McKissic getting hurt influences his target share out of the backfield. But he was already starting to see more targets and catches with McKissic healthy. He's been the running back 8 since the bye. The other thing to keep in mind is the Washington football team is also on a 4-game winning streak. So these game scripts have more favoring Antonio Gibson getting the 30-plus touches he's been getting the last 2 games. My concerns with Gibson is his upcoming schedule. He's got his next 4 games are Dallas, Philly, who are both top 5 in fantasy points allowed to the running back and to pass-catching running backs. So it's a pretty brutal schedule. But I like what I see. And I mean, he's one of those guys at this point in the season, you're not benching him.
Dan, you're someone who follows the NFC East probably more than most analysts, considering that's where your team plays. And your wife's also a Giants fan as well. So, what do you see for Gibson coming up? Because obviously he's RB11 now on the season after all season long on this podcast, including we've been worried about him. And now he's kind of vaulted back into the discussion. But like Scott said, he has this kind of, tough schedule coming up.
Yeah, I think that Scott made a good point. He coincided pretty much with McKissic, being hurt. And to his credit, he totally took advantage of that situation. But he has a brutal schedule coming up, but I'm still starting him. I mean, at this point in the season, I'm in some leagues where I have to decide between Rex Burkhead and Dontrell Hilliard. So of course I'm going to start. You're going to start Antonio Gibson if you've got him. It's gotten to that point. But I don't think that he's going to have those huge numbers that we've come to expect the past couple of weeks. I don't think he's going to have like the numbers he had in weeks 6 through 8 where he was averaging like 5 points a game either. I think he'll be a nice dependable back, probably get somewhere between 13 and 15 points a game, and at this point in the season that's a pretty good thing to have right now, that consistency. So I'm definitely starting him. I don't expect him to be as good as he was. I'm surprised that Washington is as good now as it has been, especially with the kind of middle of the season that they had. But that's credit to them. They turned it around. He's playing really well. So if I have him, I'm absolutely starting him, and hoping for that home run thing.
Yeah, and we saw this last year at Washington too, guys. They kind of came on strong at the end of the season. They sealed the division. We'll see how it plays out here. Last running back I want to touch on that did play some hero ball here in Week 13 was none other than our guy here at In Between Media, kind of becoming part of our brand, if you would. David Montgomery, welcome back, man. Welcome back for David Montgomery. 21 for 90 on the ground, and the thing I've talked about in recent weeks, I remember talking with Connor, our DFS guy. The reason he was so low price, it seemed like, on DraftKings recently was because he wasn't getting that passing work. It was like 1 or 2 receptions he was averaging a game. Comes into here 8 for 90 through the air. 8 of 9, 451. But overall, just a great day for David Montgomery. Are you obviously we're starting him? That's not the question here, but can we expect RB1 numbers for the rest of the way? I think he's going to get hot again like he did last season. And I
think on the flip side, the Bears have one of the best running back schedules in the fantasy playoffs. Comparing to the two aforementioned running backs, all 3 of these running backs we're talking about have succeeded in part due to an injury to another player. With Melvin Gordon, with J.D. McKissick, and in this case, Tariq Cohen not being healthy yet. So as far as these 3 go, I think Montgomery has the clearest path to maintaining that dominance on the backfield, because I don't think Tariq Cohen's coming back. It's still, the coach speak about it is still very hazy. Like, oh, he's working, he's doing rehab every day, he's at all the meetings, but I don't think he's coming back. And he had 9 targets in this past game.
Why would they at this point? Why would they risk him? And
I think he's a running back 1 just because he's going to dominate that opportunity share.
Well, do you think this game reminded them of how good of hands he really has? Because that's the one thing I've been just absolutely floored about is that they haven't thrown him the ball all season. And despite his health, that was a different question. But Dan, are you expecting RB1 numbers, Monty, rest of the way?
Absolutely. Even just on opportunity alone, you're going to get that volume that makes him RB1. And like Scott touched on, when you look at his schedule, especially in the weeks that most fantasy championships are going to be played in, he has fantastic. He has Seattle and New York, the Giants, who are two who are 2 of the worst run defenders in the league in terms of fantasy. So if you have him, he didn't have a couple of good weeks there, but the rest of the way, I expect him to be really, really good. I expect him to get as hot as he did last year, and carry some people to a title.
Man, that's what I need to hear, boys. I appreciate that because I have Monty probably on about 4 or 5 different playoff rosters heading into it. So we'll see what happens.
I'm not sure Andy Dalton can throw it farther than the running back in the flat. So
right. They're down on options right now. A-Rob still isn't healthy. Marquise Goodwin banged up a little bit. Outside of Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, there's not a lot of options for him out there. Guys, moving forward to we do have some injuries to talk about that did happen here in Week 13, unfortunately. Miles Sanders goes back down with another injury. It's unclear when he will return. Adam Thielen, high ankle sprain for Adam Thielen. We don't really know what his status is. He's probably definitely not playing this week, playing on Thursday night against the Steelers. Logan Thomas, he goes down to what initially looked like an ACL, MCL tear, but reports came back today that there was not a tear on the ACL. We don't know the significance of this injury, but Logan Thomas was our sure thing sleeper of the week last week. He's a stud. The guy's an awesome dude. Caught a touchdown, looked awesome. That was a pretty devastating injury, honestly, just from a personal standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything sadder than waiting, weeks and weeks for these players to come back from injury, and then they just immediately get hurt again. It's just, especially somebody like Logan Thomas, who came out of nowhere last year. And that toe tap touchdown he's an athlete. He's an athlete.
And
So,
even Miles Sanders a little bit too. I mean, this guy is so talented, and it seems like this what he was having a great game, his best game of the season all year long. Goes down to injury, and I mean now he's getting that label, and I think it is too early to label him injury prone. But we'll see what can happen with Miles Sanders. We don't know the extent of that. Dan, have you heard anything being plugged into Philadelphia circles on status of him?
No, they're going to give because our bye week is this week, so they're going to give him time to rest. He really he pretty much re-aggravated the injury he had before, the ankle injury he had previously in that game. So I mean, in all fairness, we probably shouldn't have played him. But the fact that Howard was also hurt, and he pretty much left with Gainwell and Boston Scott. Uh, but um, but I think that once the bye week comes and he gets time to heal, I think he should be okay to go once we come back in 2 weeks against Washington.
That's good to hear because I have heard rumors that it could be season ending. We don't know yet. Guys, as far as waiver priorities, people are going to be picking up players tonight, possibly tomorrow as well after waivers run. Who are we prioritizing here in the Eagles backfield? Boston Scott has looked like probably the best option at times outside of Miles Sanders, but Jordan Howard's looked good. He's expected to possibly return after the bye as well. And then Kenny Gainwell comes back out, goes over 15 PPR points once again. Dan, I'm going to throw it back to you, man. Being our Eagles insider here, who's worth a pickup here that we can actually start if we're in playoff contention?
So my heart wants to say Gainwell. I think he's the most talented of the remaining guys that aren't Sanders. He has that pass catching ability, and when he's been given the opportunity, he can turn that little run into a long game like we saw against the Jets. But I think the way the Eagles are playing, especially against division opponents, I would go with Jordan Howard. I think he fits more of the kind of running style that they want to deploy. When he gets healthy, I would go for him more over Gainwell or Scott.
Scott, are you in that camp as well?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's a messy backfield if everybody's healthy. It's just too bad about Miles Sanders because 24 carries was a career high for him in a game.
Yeah,
which I thought that was kind of crazy, but then I looked and it was true. 120 yards. I mean, I've always been a Miles Sanders guy. I think in the offseason wrote something like if he just gets the usage. But what's frustrating is even when he gets healthy, I mean, he got 24 carries, 120 yards, and he got hurt. So they're going to give him 24 carries again? Probably not. So it's pretty muddled. But Jordan Howard actually looked pretty good before he also got hurt. He actually looked better than I was expecting someone named Jordan Howard to look. And he's their goal line guy. So my heart also wants Kenneth Cainwell. I've talked about Kenneth Cainwell all season. I'm just not – I don't see myself putting him in my lineups in a playoff game. I mean, it's typically for him to get the actual fantasy output, it's taken a touchdown. He just doesn't get the volume. I mean, I like what the future holds for Kenneth Cainwell because I agree. I think he's really talented. But I'll take – if I have to choose right now, it's Jordan Howard.
I don't want to go on a tangent here, but I know I've kind of started to become a little bit of a Devonta Freeman stan out there, but Jordan Howard, that man does not get enough respect. He was a good running back for the Bears for years. I mean, what happened when he went to Philadelphia and Miami? It wasn't great, but I mean, he even had a couple big games for the Eagles back in 2019. So I just don't think Jordan Howard gets enough respect in the NFL. I guess I'll probably lean with you guys, but I mean, the good thing about this backfield is with the bye coming up, they're not going to be, you probably don't need to drop a high waiver claim priority. You don't need to drop a lot of your fab, but they're a guy, if you need someone to play in week 15, I don't think I have the confidence to start one of them in week 15 with the playoff starting, but they are an option. So keep them in mind there. Guys, as far as it looks like the hottest wide receiver on the waivers is going to be KJ Osborne this week. Are you guys comfortable spending up for KJ Osborne in relief of Adam Thielen? I'll be honest, I have a lot of that Osborne stuck away in some dynasty leagues, but not so much redrafts anymore. I kind of cut bait 4 or 5 weeks ago now.
I'm going to talk about Osborne a little bit later. I have him in another segment.
Well, for me, I would spend. I mean, you got to throw someone that isn't Justin Jefferson. And when he's been given the opportunity, he has, produced pretty well. Obviously, he's not, going to replicate exactly Adam Thielen's numbers, but he's shown that he can, do a good job if he's given some targets. So I'm not going to go crazy over him. I'm not going to dump everything, but if he's out there, I'll put in a bid for him and see. So it also depends on what kind of roster you have too. Obviously, if you have a bunch of other receivers, don't really bother to save your fab or something. But if you're hurt and your team is decimated with receivers, then go for it. Pick them up and see what you can do.
Yeah, I have a couple of rosters that are in playoff contention out there, and there may be a 2 flex league, and I'm throwing out my pick of maybe Adrian Peterson or Tim Patrick. So I think at this point, KJ Osborne sounds pretty good. He's a talented wide receiver. I think he's the best wide receiver 3 they've had there in Minnesota in at least a couple years. Guys, last one I want to touch on, Ricky Seals-Jones. I think if you do need a tight end play, he was pretty good earlier in the season. I think he can replicate not Logan Thomas type numbers, but I think he can still be a really decent fill-in if you are hurting.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at his numbers. He had a few pretty good games. I mean, he's just kind of in that same group with a bunch of tight end dart throws. Yeah. But what I think is a little bit different with him is if you were relying on Logan Thomas, then you are probably not in the playoffs because he's been hurt, right?
Yeah.
So as far as replacing Logan Thomas, you probably already took care of that weeks ago. I mean, if you're hurting at tight end, he does jump into a little bit more opportunity. But to me, nothing beyond just a dart throw at tight end.
I think Tyler Conklin's worth a little bit of a look too. He's been solid all season long, and now with no Adam Thielen, I think Kirk Cousins could target him a little bit more here. Guys, just want to round out front and center. Are there any other winners and losers that you guys really think stuck out to you here in Week 13?
Elijah Moore's a winner, I think. With the injury to Corey Davis and him being out for the year, it's pretty much, Moore is definitely the number 1 there now. And, even the Eagles, frankly, just could not stop him, the first couple of drives in the game. He literally, owned our defense. So the fact that, the quarterback is comfortable throwing to him, if you have him, he could win you, a couple of games in the playoffs. He's that good. And with that kind of target share he's going to get, I wouldn't be surprised if he won a couple people a title.
That's kind of a good that's a good one, Dan. I didn't really think about Elijah Moore, but he has come on really strong. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Ayuk towards the end of 2020. Brandon Ayuk got me to a lot of championships. I don't know if he shit the bed in the championship or what it was, but I don't think he had a great championship week, but he definitely got me there in a couple places. So I like that one. Scott, any other winners or losers for you here in Week 13?
A quick winner for me is Ramonde Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Damien Harris, it's a hamstring injury.
Yes.
Inexplicably, the Patriots put him back out for 1 rush and just reheard it. I don't know what that was about. Anyway, Damien Harris could be back next week, or this could linger. And they've already shown a confidence in giving Stevenson obviously a full workload with their wishbone student body left running offense yesterday. They ran 500 times. But real quick, I'm going to jump to losers. Broncos pass catchers. I have quite a bit of Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on my teams, and I don't think they're startable at this point.
Neither Tim Patrick isn't either anymore.
I don't think they have been startable for, I think Cortland Sutton just a little bit on name value, but I've had him on my bench for weeks without even thinking about starting him. Last week was the last week where I actually had Jeudy and somebody else as a decision. Elijah Moore, and luckily I chose Elijah Moore. But I don't know if you can start Jeudy either. Are not reliable.
I'm avoiding Denver at all costs outside of Javonte Williams, and if I need Melvin Gordon in some lineups as well. But I'm with you there. Tim Patrick has been awful in a couple of leagues. I don't think he's seen double digits maybe in 1 of his last 4 games. Cortland Sutton's right in that too. So good call on that. The last one I want to highlight here, a winner. I sound like a broken record at this point, guys, but Devonta Freeman, can we get this man some respect? Man has been RB10 since coming back from the bye in Week 8, So since week 9, he's been an RB1, comes out here, 20.7 PPR points. He's averaging over 4 targets per game. Like, he looks good, man. Like at times, like Lamar Jackson has looked shoddy these last couple weeks. But I really think Devonta Freeman, like, he's a mid to high end RB2 going forward. Dan, I was actually tuning into your show earlier today, and I asked you and Steffi, who would you play out of Aaron Jones and Devonta Freeman this week?
Mm-hmm.
I have that decision to make in my home league as well as in Scott Fishbowl this week, and I think I'm rolling Freeman. Your co-host advised me I was right. You told me to go the other way around.
I did. Yeah, I mean, like I said back on my show, it depends on Jones's health. I mean, if he's healthy, I mean, I can't. As good as Freeman has played, I have to go with like the guy that got me there kind of thing. Not to saying that that Freeman doesn't deserve it, but if Jones is like questionable with any kind of injury, then I'm 100% going Freeman.
Yeah,
Freeman's healthy. He's had some great weeks. I really am concerned about Jones's knee. But if that cleared, I'm okay with starting him. But I could see why you would want to start Freeman over. I wouldn't yell and scream and someone start Freeman over Jones. I get it. But for me personally, I would go Jones if he's healthy again.
Scott, rest of season, are you vibing with me, bro, that Devonta Freeman is the RB2 I think he is the rest of the way?
I mean, with the current running back landscape, yes. I mean,
let's go.
I was able to pick him up in a few leagues, because it's like, let's say it was Latavius Murray doing this instead of Devonta Freeman. It'd be the same thing where it's like, I'm not going to pick him up. It's Devonta Freeman. He's 100 years old. But I was able to snatch him up in a few leagues before he turned consistent. And yeah, like I said, with the injuries we've had at running back this whole season, to have somebody getting that kind of workload on that type of offense is valuable. As far as Aaron Jones, I mean, that's saying a lot because Seth, you've been the highest on Aaron Jones, I think, since the start of the season.
Yeah.
I have the same concerns with Aaron Jones, and I mean, injury aside, I mean, who's to say this isn't steering more towards a Denver type situation with AJ Dillon? I mean, he's shown he can handle the load too. So
yeah.
But if you were asking me point blank, if Aaron Jones if he is active, I'm starting him over Freeman.
We'll see what I do. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll keep you updated on the.
I get a lot of stuff wrong, so I mean.
Guys, this is a great discussion here on Front and Center. Let's go ahead and get into Back in the Day, which is presented by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. If you guys have not played Underdog Fantasy this season, I highly suggest you do it. You can join now, use the promo code IBT, and you're going to get 100% match deposit up to $100. That's just good economics, baby. Just good economics. So check them out if you want to play some pick'em parlays. We're always highlighting the pick'em parlays on our DFS tailgate show on Sunday mornings. They also have weekly drafts, and right after the season ends, if you want to play some best ball, get ready for 2022. They have those as well. So use that promo code IBT. Check out Underdog Fantasy, guys. Let's go ahead and get into some Back in the Day.
They ain't make them like this way back in the day. Took a shot, couldn't miss way back in the day. Couldn't predict how it could all change. Don't you ever forget how far we came. How far we came. Never forget how far we came. How far we came. Remember how it was way back in the day.
All right. So back in the day, guys, this is our way of kind of reflecting a little bit on previous seasons and what we can learn heading into this season, specifically now, the playoff stretch here. And I want to highlight, guys, just something I saw a couple of years ago with a Miami wide receiver that I think could translate here to 2021. Scott, you highlighted earlier this week in a column, Jalen Waddle. He's a wide receiver 1 on the season. I missed it. You missed it. I think we both admitted that. We did not see this coming. But if we look a couple years ago, maybe we should have. Devonte Parker was a beast in 2019. He was the wide receiver 4 week 6 through 13, and he was the wide receiver 7 in the playoffs. So my point of referencing this remarkable season by Devonte Parker, who was really the pickup of the year in 2019, I think it's more to reference that I think this is Brian Flores' system. Yes, I think Fitzpatrick had something to do with targeting the number 1 wide receiver, but I mean, the amount of targets Jalen Waddle has gotten this season is uncanny. The routes ran are his number 1 in the league. I just think that my advice here, don't question Jalen Waddle. You're starting him, and I think you can expect high-end wide receiver 2 numbers the rest of the way, and maybe a potential league winner.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun writing about him in the column. Now, I will clarify that, this kind of outlet Waddle is significantly more on the PPR side of things.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's not a giant touchdown scorer, and he's actually, I mean, his yards per catch is pretty low. It's sub 10 yards. But just the consistencies he's shown as a rookie, and I mean, the whole positive touchdown regression. If you look historically at touchdowns per target over time, he's due for some touchdowns. And he has good chemistry with Tua. They're also a really hot team right now, just like the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done it. I mean, it was he caught a touchdown in week 1, his inaugural game, and then he had a few quiet weeks, and then he had like a 13 target game early in the season, and he has not looked back since. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's must start.
Ride the wave, baby. Dan?
I agree with Scott on his advice there. For me, for a trend, is to look at teams that are out of playoff contention. I actually wrote an article a couple of weeks ago with the help of Scott. Scott does really great data dumps on Twitter. So if you haven't seen those, go check them out. They're awesome. So
Yes,
I use them in a couple of articles and just see what kind of schedule the teams have going into your fantasy playoffs and where they are, in standings in the real NFL. So you have these guys that, if the Lions, if they shut down Swift because they're obviously out and not going to play them the rest of the year, and go look at their backups. Go look at some guys that haven't played it that much all year that teams could end up starting in the last couple of weeks of the season, especially with the extra week. There's no reason to put extra tread on these guys' tires when so many of them have been hurt already all year. So be sure to go and look at those schedules and see, maybe you have a really good matchup on a big name running back that isn't going to play, and maybe go and grab his backup that might be on the waiver wire.
Love it. Scott, is there anything else that we should be aware of, recent trends or anything playoff related that we should be aware of heading into week 14 here?
First of all, my daughters are on the other side of this wall, so I apologize for any noise. Get ready for bed. No, so yeah, just a few things. One, if you're playing with the FAB system, you don't get to carry FAB over to the next year. So, like, for instance, if somebody like Ramonde Stevenson is somehow on your waiver wire, if somebody got impatient with the weird healthy scratches and all that kind of stuff, now is the time to empty your FAB. There is nothing to save it for. The playoffs are coming. If there is any potential value or somebody that can help you win playoff games, you unload FAB now for that player. Secondly, I mentioned earlier, we talked about Antonio Gibson's upcoming schedule, Dallas, Philly, Dallas, who are, have been very good as far as giving up very few points for running backs. But also keep in mind that for some reason, the NFL scheduled the NFC East to only play each other for like the last 6 weeks of the season. It's crazy. I checked the other conferences, the other divisions, and it's not really like that. But I mean, they just play each other. So the other thing to keep in mind is don't get too cute with that kind of thing. Don't sit Antonio Gibson because of his matchup, because whatever has happened throughout the course of the year, the divisional games don't follow rules. They don't follow trends. Things happen in divisional games, especially the NFC East and the NFC in general, where the Lions, the Seahawks, the Bears, and the Giants Those are the only 4 teams that are not in playoff contention. Everybody else is in playoff contention.
Wow, really?
So yeah, there's so many teams at 5 and 7, 6 and it's
Right.
So the NFC, for basically, I'm talking like for the second wild card. I mean, the Rams pretty well have the first wild card locked up. How many wild cards are there nowadays? Anyway, so it's going to be really fun for one to watch this last month. But keep that in mind. Like, use the stats and speculate as much as you can. But somebody like Antonio Gibson, he could go off against the Cowboys. Who knows? Interdivision games.
Shit might hit the fan is what Scott's trying to tell you. Shit might hit the fan, so be prepared for it.
It's going to be so much fun to watch.
It is, guys. I'm super excited. We're going to specifically focus here on Week 14 a little more when we get into our Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week, just on the other side of our ad read. Guys, I want to talk about Stevens Quality Barbering Services. If you've listened to this podcast at all this season, I've been talking about it all year long, guys. I've been going to Noah for 7+ years. He has hooked me up, kept me fresh when I need to get, trimmed up for whatever event I have coming up, or whether I just want to be good looking for the podcast, guys. So if you want a quality haircut, quality conversation at a quality price, and just an overall quality experience, head over to stevens-quality.genbook.com to book an appointment today. If you're in Central or Western Pennsylvania, Noah's going to get hooked up, baby. All right, and let's go ahead and hop into some Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week.
It's the Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week.
All righty. I need some shore back in my life. Dan, you're the man. You live right near the shore, 10 or so minutes away. So I feel like it'd be rude if anyone else went first. Since you've seen the ocean lately, my friend, who is your Sure Thing and the Sleeper of the Week? Week 14, so it's so critical. They will hunt you down if you get it wrong.
Well, yeah, so now you told them all where I live, so they can locate me now. I'm going to go with it's a little bit of a deeper one. I'm going to go with Josh Reynolds, Detroit. He signed there a couple of weeks ago, but every single week he's gotten better. He's gone from 3 targets to 5 targets to 7 targets. He's playing over 80% snap share every game. He's running more routes. He's getting more receptions. There really isn't, established hierarchy of receivers in Detroit. And he has, some past with Jared Goff from their time with the Rams.
Yeah.
So if you're hurting in receivers and the waiver wire is kind of dry, and he's sitting out there where he is in majority of leagues, go step him up. He could be a decent flex play for you if you need someone like that.
I like that. I honestly didn't even consider, I've seen Josh Reynolds take off the last couple of weeks. Thanksgiving was the first we kind of saw of it. But I like that, honestly. The leagues I'm playing Tim Patrick, and I might be pivoting to Josh Reynolds. I like that, Dan. I like that.
Thank you.
Scott, am I going to like yours just as much, buddy?
I don't know. Mine was Tim Patrick 2 weeks ago. So I don't know if I've gotten one of these right at all, but whatever. So the reason I held my tongue a little bit earlier when we were talking about Thielen is because my Sure Thing Sleeper is KJ Osborne. So Thielen's out, high ankle sprain. The last I read was he might come back maybe late in the fantasy playoffs. So I'm expecting Thielen to be out for a little bit of time. And KJ Osborne is one of those scenarios where if you are the Thielen owner, you likely could be in playoff contention. A lot of times it's like, if you were relying on that guy, then you probably are. Well, if you had Thielen on your team, you could very well be in playoff contention.
He's been a wide receiver one, for sure.
I'm careful to use vacated targets because it's a little bit hard to read what that actually leads to. But so we'll just talk about vacated snaps because Adam Thielen was the league leader wide receivers in snap percentage, 96%.
Really?
Yeah, he led.
Oh my God!
As far as the top 36 wide receivers, at least, he was the top dog at 96%. So obviously, I don't think KJ Osborne is just going to slide in and play 96% of the snaps. They have other receivers; they'll cycle people in. But I think he's the next man up, and he's shown in a couple of games. I mean, week 1, 9 targets, 7 catches. He's had 3 touchdowns on the year. The touchdown last week. So, and I think he's also one of those guys who I think will be good this week and who is somebody to pick up to potentially play beyond this week as well. Just because I don't think Thielen's coming back for at least a couple of weeks. So, and I mean, the Vikings, I mean, they one of the most pass happy teams in the league. They're close to a 60-40 pass run ratio. Cousins wings the ball all over the place. So I like the opportunity he's going to step into. And it also makes me think I sure wish Irv Smith Jr. was healthy.
Oh,
Well, no big Irv for you, Scott, but I think KJ Osborne will do this week. I definitely think he's an interesting flex play this week, as well as a good pickup for the rest of the season. My sure thing sleeper of the week heading into week 14, the so pivotal week 14, as they call it, Donta Foreman. No, not Devonta Freeman. I know you heard a D and an F out of me. You might have been thinking I was talking about Devonta Freeman, but no, I'm talking about Foreman, baby. I mean, it hasn't been great so far for him this season, but he hasn't hit that double-digit plateau yet as far as PPR points goes. But last time we saw him, 19 for 109 on the ground, 49% of the snaps. It really seems like he's in a true 50-50 split with Dontrell Hilliard. Hilliard, yes, I think is probably the more explosive back. But this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Tennessee is just going to get up and kind of pound the ball down their throat, I really think we've seen how bad the Jags are against the running back. They're bottom 8 the last 2 and 4 weeks, whatever way you want to look at it. They're bad against the running back. Last week, Sony Michel, he had over 100 yards and a TD. 2 weeks ago, Cordell Patterson had over 100 yards and 2 TDs. So this is an exploitable Jags rushing defense. And I think our guy, Dante Foreman, I think he's worth a flex play this week, maybe even an RB2 if you need him.
Yeah, I like that call. I remember he was one of those guys a few years back where I was like, okay, I'm stashing him now. He's just one of those names that sticks out in my head. But I mean, he was over 100 yards in his last game against the Patriots, who have been pretty stingy against running backs the last 5 weeks. I think both him and Hilliard are startable. It's really weird to say. I mean, picture pre-draft discussions 2021, like, so what do you think the split between Donta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard is going to be in week 14? Like, come on.
You made those people up. They're not real players.
They don't exist. We're living in the past. So no, I think that's a great one. He's another one of those running backs where it's like he's going to get some volume. He's shown flashes. He'll likely be the goal line guy. So yeah, I like it.
He also wears a single digit. I think the RBs who've been wearing single digits this year, aside from Adrian Peterson on the Titans, have been really good, man. Like James Conner, number 6, like the man has been unleashed.
Leonard Fournette. Yep.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette, the 7, man. It looks good. I love the single digits.
Peterson had 7 rushes for 16 yards with the Seahawks last week. So,
yes, sir.
And then you're
in win now mode, though, Scott. Seattle's in win now mode, baby.
Sure.
Guys, let's go ahead and round out the show with our final segment, Would You Rather?
Risking business or that fair say. Are you that hard on the rise? We're chilling with a cold one. Feeling bold one or hold back. Would you rather? This ain't no simple matter.
All right. I hope you guys have played at home. I hope you've played the game Would You Rather before, even if it's just like childhood sleepover before you go to bed. Would you rather? You know how it goes, guys. Guys, I'm going to ask a series of questions here, fantasy and or lifestyle related, and then you guys give me your answer. Which would you rather? I want to start with, would you rather rest of season have TJ Hawkinson or Darren Waller? So far this season, TJ Hawkinson is the tight end 3 in PPR leagues. Darren Waller is the tight end 7 in PPR leagues. However, Waller is averaging about 0.8 more of a PPR point per game. However, he is banged up. upcoming schedule for the Raiders isn't super sexy. Chiefs, Browns, Broncos, Colts. And on the other end of it for Hawkinson, you get a little bit better of a schedule, I believe. Denver, Arizona, Atlanta, Seattle. Scott, I'm going to start with you, man. You've heard my TJ Hawkinson love all season long, man. Rest of season, let's get down to business. Darren Waller or TJ Hawkinson?
So this is a tough one. They're pretty close because, in points per game, I think it's Waller at 4 and Hawk at 5. I think my answer is this. If they were both healthy, it would be Waller. But current conditions, I'm choosing Hawkinson. Waller was week to week. Now he's been moved up to day. It's a little fuzzy with how hurt he actually is. So if I had to choose today, I'm choosing Hawk. He found the end zone again. Recently, he's found the end zone a couple different times. I think Jared Goff finally remembered he was there. I mean, they put up similar numbers, similar targets per game. Similar PPR points per game.
Both big like swings too. Like both they'll go anywhere from 15 targets a game all the way down to 4 targets.
Yeah, but if both healthy, I'm taking Waller. If they're both healthy, I give the edge to Waller just because he's on a better offense.
Fair. Dan, rest of season, Hawk or Waller?
I agree with Scott. I mean, personally, I have to take a huge L on Hawkinson. I thought before the year I wasn't that high on him compared to everyone else, and I was dead wrong. I didn't think that being the focal point of Detroit without many great receiving options around him, he wasn't going to do as well as he has, but I was incorrect. But like I said, like both were healthy. Like Scott said, I probably lean Waller. But Hawkinson has proven to be, the guy in Detroit. And they have a decent schedule and a really good matchup in the fantasy championship. So I'm going to roll with Hawkinson.
This ain't no make-believe land. We can't say if they're healthy. No, baby, it's Hawkinson. Let's go. Guys, next question for you.
I know the rules.
And Scott, I know I've heard your worst fantasy loss ever. I have a couple heartbreaking ones as well. Would you guys rather be able to go back in time and redo your worst fantasy playoff or championship loss? Or would you rather go back to your most embarrassing moment in high school or college and redo it so that didn't happen? Scott, what do you got, man?
The fantasy decision. No hesitation whatsoever. I mean, I'd have to, as far as embarrassing moments in high school and college, I'd have to pick from quite a few. I really wouldn't tip the scales too much, but my worst fantasy decision I still think about.
Yeah.
And because it involved starting Tim Tebow, and I'll never get over it. I'll just never get over it. So I'm choosing that if I had a flex capacitor.
Danny boy.
It's definitely the fantasy decision. The fantasy decision it was in my my inaugural my original dynasty league. We had IDP, and it was undefeated for the year because I had drafted McCaffrey, Hunt, and Kamara when they were rookies.
Oh,
So we got all 3 of them. So I was crushing the league. I was crushing it. But then in the finals, I lost by 2 points because I played Justin Reed over Kareem Jackson. Kareem Jackson scored 5 more points. I would have won an undefeated season if I just flip-flopped them. And they were both on the Texans at the time, so it was really just an either-or. And Reed had been killing it all year. So yeah, I will never live that down in my life.
Yeah, real quick, I want to, in case people haven't heard the story, might as well. So real quick. It was a Week 18 championship, or Week 17 championship was the first problem, but it was one of my first championships, and it was the year Matt Flynn. He played the last game in Green Bay when Rodgers sat, and he threw like 7 touchdowns. So I had Matt Flynn and I had Tim Tebow on my team to start in the championship game, and Tebow had been doing his best, dare I say, Jalen Hurts type scoring for the last months, where he wasn't really getting a lot of passing, and not in a disrespectful way. He wasn't getting a lot of passing points, but he was doing it with his legs. So I chose Tim Tebow. Meanwhile, Matt Flynn scored 48 points. Tim Tebow scored 0 points, exactly 0. and I lost by 5. So it was just
Oh,
the worst you could possibly imagine.
we both lost by the same score, 5 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a loss I'll never forget. It was a Ahmad Bradshaw touchdown that put my opponent over the top on Monday Night Football at the very end of the championship week. Like, I had it up until that touchdown too, and then it was like,
wow. I was trying to think of this one myself and trying to decide, is there a moment like I really screwed up bad enough in high school or college I would go back and like redo? And then like I was like, no, all of them are kind of like funny enough where like, yeah, me and my friends would, or Katie, we might joke about them and laugh, but it's like it's funny and it's memorable. My worst fantasy football loss is just like I hate even thinking about it. Like real quick too. The year is, oh man, what is it? 2018. Todd Gurley's original breakout season, junior year of college. Love Todd Gurley. Maybe it was Todd Gurley's second. I don't know. It was one of his great years. I had him both years in my home league, and this is a competitive ass home league. I mean, I just had everyone that year: Adam Thielen, Tariq Cohen, and Jordan Howard on that like great Dolly year. George Kittle in his breakout year, that year that like Jared Goff was somehow just a beast. And in the fantasy championship, I had Todd Gurley injured, and all week I'm hearing John Kelly's the guy. I pick up John Kelly. I play John Kelly. Ends up being my opponent plays CJ Anderson. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
CJ Anderson. John Kelly gets me 2 points. CJ Anderson gets him 28, wins him the league. And I'm just like sitting here. I'll never have a team that good. I'll never have it.
That is brutal.
That is the worst.
But guys, hopefully we're here to help people, not have these incidents. But they are, as shitty as they are still funny to look back on. All of your guys' stories were great, so I appreciate you guys sharing those. 2 more would you rather questions to round us out tonight. Would you rather, and I know you can call me a hypocrite on this one. Would you rather rest of season if healthy, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, or Elijah Mitchell? We are in a make-believe land now. But more just because I don't know the status of Mitchell or DeAndre Swift.
You can go first on this one, Dan.
Yeah, I'll go Mitchell. I just think he's been the more consistent guy when healthy. Obviously, I know that Swift is obviously the much bigger name for everyone, but I would prefer for the rest of the season going with Mitchell, who has some really good schedule coming up as well. So that's my vote.
Yeah, for me, oddly enough, Najee is third on this list.
Wow.
Yeah. That's partly due to he has the worst schedule of the 3 in the fantasy playoffs. I actually lean Swift if he's healthy. He's got in week 16 and 17, he's got the Falcons and the Seahawks, week 16 and 17, who both give up tons of points on the ground and through the air to running backs. Najee the Steelers' offense has been just not great.
Boring. It's been boring.
It's been bad.
It was a little better over the weekend. It was a little.
Yeah, I just I love Najee Harris. I don't buy into the whole like, his yards per carry's down, so he's terrible. I don't buy into that. I have him on a few teams and I've loved him. And his pass catching and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Elijah Mitchell has. I mean, I remember hearing from Ray GQ over the summer, who's the next James Robinson? He said Elijah Mitchell, and that's what he reminds me of this year. What he's doing when he's been healthy, he just continues to produce, and they also have a really good playoff schedule. So I'm taking Swift at the top. I think Mitchell has a little bit more when he's healthy of a secure opportunity share when compared to Swift. Jamal Williams is healthy, but I mean Swift can put up a 40-point game any given week, especially against those opponents. Yeah.
I will say, Scott, you need to pat yourself on the back too, because I don't remember if it was a pre-draft or just after the draft show, but we did a show, a Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week draft edition, where you mentioned Elijah Mitchell as a guy to pay attention to coming into the season.
Oh, I do remember that.
I think that might have been pre-draft. I'm going to be honest. I think it was pre-NFL draft that you mentioned his name because we were throwing some darts that day, I remember. So hats off to you as well for naming Elijah Mitchell. Because you named him that day, I have him in about 3 or 4 dynasty leagues undrafted. So thank you. Thank you, Scott. You've saved a couple of
one.
There you go, baby. But I'm going to agree with you guys here. Well, I'm going to agree with Dan at least. I'm going Elijah Mitchell rest of the season. He's been RB7 since week 7 on a points per game basis. His counterparts, DeAndre Swift, RB13, Najee Harris, RB14. So, Harris and Swift, kind of pick your poison there. I think I do lean with Scott that I think the upside is there for DeAndre Swift. But I think overall, Mitchell is a freaking, he's a missile, man. Jeff Wilson has not been the guy. Hopefully Mitchell gets back this week. I really hope. I'm going to be leaning on him here in week 15 in a couple leagues. So, man, what a great waiver claim he was.
I will say, with Mitchell, as far as the 49ers backfield, which was, much discussed coming into the year about this backfield, it's always hard to tell. It's pretty clear now. Wilson's not the guy. Trey Sermon's on IR. Hasty is a change of pace guy.
They might draft another guy just to back up Mitchell.
I know, but I think you might be swaying my decision is what I'm saying. Mitchell is the guy. More so than we thought. I think any 49er running back would be the guy this year. So
it was always just a revolving door, and it has not been really this whole season. Mitchell's taken over. Man, it's crazy to think where we are now compared to when we were drafting Trey Sermon and man, I can't even remember Raheem Mostert. Top 10 rounds, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, last one here for you. Would you rather? There's last place punishments in every league. Real quick before I ask the questions, do any of you guys have any last place punishments in any of your leagues?
I have 2 main home leagues that I've been in for a long time, and neither of them do. They're pretty tame leagues as far as punishments or showing up at the live draft,
right?
For code or whatever,
right?
For my home league, we do. For our home league, we actually have a last place commissioner who gets to pick the punishment for the person that gets last place. Last year, it was they had to dress up in a maid outfit and get everyone drinks and food whenever they asked for it during the draft. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's pretty fun.
But we're close bunch. Most of us have known each other, for over a decade. So it's all in good fun though.
So my oldest league going back, it's called KEG, Kane's Extraordinary Gentleman. Kane being the town we grew up in. And it's funny because I remember the first year we kind of rejuvenated this league when we all got back into college. We all always kind of had a version of this league, but we really submitted it when we got to college. And I remember we voted on the last place punishment, and one was run through campus naked or, all these other punishments. We ended up settling on last place has to buy a keg for the rest of the guys. So that's been a lot of fun. We still have a couple people. We don't all get together enough. So we have a couple of them that are still owed. But my best friend got last this year. So he's going to be paying up this year. I'm excited for that one. Guys, question is though, last place punishment, would you rather do the Waffle House challenge? For those of you who do not know what that is, you go to a Waffle House for 24 hours. Every waffle you eat, you take off 1 hour of time. Would you rather have to do the Waffle House challenge or survive in the woods with nothing but a knife and matches for one night in the woods? Say leave around 4 p.m., return around, let's say 10 a.m.
That's the thing. I love waffles, but that sounds awful. It sounds like I would eat way too many waffles and maybe throw up all over a Waffle House.
Definitely, yeah.
And I feel like with a machete in some matches, I could pretty easily get a fire going. And I'm gonna choose. Yeah, I camp a lot. I'm choosing the forest thing.
Yeah, the woods. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, choosing the woods, and then once the night's over, I'm going to a Waffle House and getting an appropriate amount of waffles.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like honestly, you could make like a little lean-to out of some trees and like make a fire. I've watched Survivor. I've watched other survival shows.
Yeah, there's a pretty good how-to episode of The Office if you're interested, where Michael Scott shows you how to survive in the wilderness. You should.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think the Waffle House one would honestly like you're gonna be set back like a day or so. Like I think you could get up the next day. Like you could get some better content, I think, out of like the survival one. No, I've never heard anyone doing that. I was just kind of thinking of like cool last place punishments, and I think like that's when we might have to instill maybe in like a future like IBT league or maybe the Minshew Best Ball Dynasty League we're all
best
in.
ball that isn't best ball.
Yeah, the best ball league.
Guys,
100%. That'd be great. Last place punishments in those leagues would be fantastic.
Well, we're gonna do it because I know our colleague Nate he's currently in last place, so we need to motivate him. Guys, any final piece of advice heading into not just the final stretch of the fantasy football season, but it's a tough time. Like let's be honest, we're all super busy right now. I appreciate both of your time tonight. Scott, I know you have kids. Dan, you have Katie and everything you guys are doing over at Champions Round. But any final advice as we head out here into the world?
Fantasy-wise, set your lineups even if you're not in the playoffs. Please don't give up. Just continue to set your lineups. You don't need to make waiver claims. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But fill out a lineup. Still try and win. Life-wise, it's the holidays are coming up. Make sure, especially if you do a lot of family and friends and a lot of socializing and that kind of thing, find your times for yourself. Find your times for your self-care. Find your times if you just need to go walk around with some earphones and blast some music, whatever it is. Make sure you find that time for yourself.
I love that. Dan?
Kind of bouncing off on the fantasy side of what Scott said. It's okay to say no, because a lot of people give up and don't set lineups anymore once they're out of it because they're in too many leagues. So, it's okay if you someone asks you to play and you decline, because at a certain point, if you get too many leagues, in my opinion, it stops being fun. You're just like a robot, just like setting waivers for 2 hours a night, and it isn't as fun as it should be. So just just know your limit and be okay with maybe not doing as many as you want to do. And for life, like you said, the holidays, everyone's like running around and stressed out. So just have a little patience with people. Yeah, everyone's stressed. It's the first like big holiday after COVID. People are getting back together and everything, and nothing's ever going to work out the way everyone always plans it. So just make sure to, even for yourself, show yourself and others like a little patience, and everyone will have a better holiday, I think.
I love that. Dan. I think you said something. I think you said something similar in our tips column as well. You can check that out at inbetweenmedia.com. Dan, Scott, I really appreciate that advice. My final words of wisdom here for heading into week 14 is just, and this is not fantasy advice, it's just simply life advice, is listen to advice of others. I mean, there are so many people, I will say, whenever I feel like, I'm questioning myself or my path, I often consult in other people. And Dan and Scott, you guys are both people in this industry that I've seeked advice on different things. And, there are a lot of people in this industry and just the media space in general that I've consulted with. And it really does make me feel a lot better at the end of the day. I know I'm on the right path, and, consulting other people, whether it's for fantasy advice or life advice, there's no shame in that, guys. You know how we roll here in between media. So continue to do that. I just urge you, if you're ever struggling, you know where to reach us. Please, if you're ever struggling mentally, we've talked about this recently, get professional help. But at the end of the day, we're going to be here for you guys the rest of the season. We got a couple episodes left, so you can't get rid of us that quickly. Scott, Dan, what an absolute pleasure. Want to shout out our guy Kyle in the back end. Dan, what's going on Champions Round that we need to know as we head out, man?
Oh, the season's like winding down. We have a couple more weeks to go. We're going to the Super Bowl, then we're going to start on some fun off-season content. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like right now because it's our first kind of like off-season like full go, but it's exciting. So I can't wait to show you guys the new stuff we're going to be working on.
Awesome. Well, Dan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, man. We appreciate your time and everything you do for us here at In Between Media. Scott, always appreciate the Mondays, Pulp Fantasy, all the good content, the data you're putting out for us here at In Between Media. I salute you, man. All our listeners, readers, live stream audience, we appreciate you guys. Have a great week 14. Good luck, and we'll be back next week. Same place, same time. Until then, keep it in between.
The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
The one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.